Well, I think we're back and ready to go. I'd like to introduce Kim Nettleton. She is the Haymarket reporter for the Kansas Department of Agriculture and has been with the agency for 5 years. In this position, Kim reports on the hay of all types and sunflowers weekly. These reports help support the agency's mission of providing an environment that enhances and encourages economic growth through statistical reporting. Prior to joining the Department of Agriculture, Kim was the environmental and sustainability lead at Mars Chocolate in Topeka. Kim currently resides on a farm in northern Lyon County with her husband Todd and her son Ryder. They have a small cow-calf operation. Kim enjoys being outside on her time off with either hunting, fishing, or gardening. And I know she is also a part of our Kansas Forage and Grassland Board. So with that, Kim, if you are ready, we're going to let you take off with the hay report.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
I can see you.
Oh, you can see me.
Yeah, so at the bottom it should say share screen, and then you should be able to pick what you need to share.
Okay, I'm sharing, golly, this one maybe? I don't know which one it is. Should be screen 2, so share.
There you go. I see a PowerPoint now, Kim.
Okay, and now I'm going to open it up to full screen. What do you see now?
I see your opening screen on your PowerPoint, Kim.
Okay, and not the area with the notes and stuff, right?
Right, yep.
Okay, awesome. We're ready. We're ready to go. All right. All right, so as Dale said, I'm Kim Nettleton with the Kansas Department of Agriculture, and this morning we're gonna just do a quick overview of what transpired in the hay market, and including why we're at where we're at as prices. The first half of the presentation is going to be primarily weather related, and then we'll get into markets and what they look like here in just a minute. So first off, as we all know, we've had a very interesting year this year. It's been kind of crazy, 2020 has been. And there's been a number of factors that affected that market, that alfalfa or that hay market, and that has currently left us with just slightly higher prices than 2019. For those of you that do not know, I call approximately 97 people at least monthly, and about half of those folks I talk to every week. The state is divided up into 5 different regions. I have 10 contacts approximately in the Northwest region, 22 in the Southwest region, 27 in the South Central region, 23 in the Southeast. Thank you, Roger Black. And 15 in the North Central Northeast region. In addition to those folks, I also talked to about 49 feed yards. 35 of those are in the Southwest region and 14 is in the South Central region. They are called once per month, and the data that is gleaned from those feed yards is 1 month in arrears. So for example, if I'm calling a feed yard in February, I'm getting the figures and the information for January. All right. The hay report is published every Tuesday, and the feed yard information will be published within that report, either the 2nd or the 3rd week of the month. Okay. 2020 weather was indeed crazy as well. January was actually wetter than normal across the state, with statewide average precipitations for the month at just 1.27 inches. It ranked actually the 16th wettest January in the 126-year record. The Northwest region was the driest with only about 0.34 inches of precipitation. And temperatures for January were also warmer than normal, with a statewide average temperature of 32.8 degrees, which is actually 3 degrees warmer than normal. January ranked the 26th warmest January on record. For livestock producers, the freezing rain alternating with the thawed ground created difficult conditions for feeding and calving, of course. And then due to the wetter than normal pattern, drought conditions did improve, but were not eliminated. severe drought continued to be a problem, especially in that southwest region, where some wheat fields had some difficulty with emergence. In February, it was dry, especially in the north and western regions, while it was wet in the south. Statewide average precipitation for the month was just over 1 inch, and the north central region was the driest. Of course, the southeast region has the highest average with 2.3 inches, and the statewide temperature for average temperature was at 33.5 degrees, which was actually a little bit cooler than normal. The warmest place in the state was north central region, had the warmest departure at 32 degrees. And then the city of Atwood, they set a new record high temperature for the month of February with 84 degrees. It was the third, I think it was the February 3rd. Across the state, 48 new daily record highs, temperature highs were recorded, and they were all in that February 2nd and 3rd time frame. Precipitation that was received was a mix of rain and snow, and this increased stress on livestock, and it complicated the calving operation. Dry conditions, of course, did persist in the west, and this was coupled with abundant fuels, or these dry conditions coupled with abundant fuel gave rise to increased fire danger in February. Overall March was warm and wet. Statewide average precip for the month was it was almost 2 inches, with the north central region being the driest. And of course, southeast region, again, was the highest with precipitation. They were just at 5 inches, the third wettest start to the new year in 127 years for them. March 30th brought an early spring storm that left a path of small hail in west central Kansas. It was large enough, however, to be visible by satellites the day after the event, and it damaged young alfalfa plants. Statewide, the average temperature for the month was 46.6 degrees, which was almost 3 degrees warmer than normal. The warmer than normal temperatures helped allow for less stressful calving during that month. But the warm temperatures also increased insect problems. Lots of early reports of insects. The moisture in the western northwest prevented further drought degradation in that area. However, in contrast, the much greater than normal rainfall in the southeast created field issues, and saturated soils prevented spring work in many locations. In April, April was dry and cool, and that's when the COVID-19 rules really took its toll and came into play. Rainfall was limited across the state, with the greatest temperature departures in the northwest and the northeast corners. Statewide average precip for the month was 1.34 inches. The northwest region was the driest, as you can tell. Their average precipitation was only 0.07 inches, so hardly anything, if you can call that anything. And the Northeast had the highest amount with an average of 2.62 inches. Now, despite the dry conditions, several spring storms did produce swaths of hail in western, central, and northeast Kansas, of course, damaging crops in those areas. Statewide average temperature for the month was 51.6 degrees, which was actually cooler than normal. And cooling occurred across nearly all of Kansas, and it was uniformly distributed. All regions saw low temperatures dip below 24 degrees during, there was a cold snap in the middle of the month, and that freeze resulted in damage to winter wheat and young alfalfa. So COVID-19 quarantines at this time also had an impact. Stay-at-home rules reduced travel and made field scouting and other agricultural activities very difficult. The lack of trade caused a steep drop in commodity prices, along with difficulty moving products to market. In May, overall, we had a pretty decent May compared to the previous 3 years. May was cool and near normal for precipitation, but it was highly skewed again to the eastern third of the state. State precip averaged slightly short of normal at 3.86 inches. Parsons recorded the greatest 24-hour precip event with 5.5 inches on the 25th. And Independence had the greatest total overall for May with just over 11 inches. All regions saw low temperatures drop into the mid-30s during a cold outbreak again in May in the middle of the month, which resulted in lower growing degree days. Dry soils hampered crops in the west, while the wet soils resulted in submerged crops in the east. Statewide average temp for the month was 61 degrees, which was almost 3 degrees cooler than normal. And the first tornado of the season was reported on May 14th near Council Grove. For June 20th was the first day of summer. Higher temperatures and low precip patterns continued through the month. June was warm and dry generally across the state. The heat was largely driven by warm minimum temperatures, many of which set records. Statewide, there were 19 new daily record highs during June. And in contrast, there were 48 new record warm minimums. So the minimum temperature was actually warmer than it normally was. Statewide precipitation averaged below normal with only west central and north central regions above normal. For July, thank goodness for July. Rainfall for July was above normal statewide, providing drought relief in the west and slowing drought expansion in the east. It ranked as the 8th wettest July since 1895. Statewide average precipitation was 5.94, almost 6 inches. The north central region was the wettest and with an average of 8.43 inches. That ample moisture was beneficial, obviously, for soybean and sorghum development, and the statewide average temperatures were near normal for July. The average temperature was just around 79 degrees. There were some wide swings in temperatures in July, however, with the highest reading of 109 degrees in Tribune on July 19th, and the lowest temperature was 50 degrees at Goodland on July 1st. For August, in sharp contrast to July, we went right back to that dry weather pattern. All regions were drier than normal, with the west central showing areas of above normal precipitation. It ranked as the 12th driest August since 1895, and statewide average precipitation was only 1.62 inches, with the west central region being the wettest. Temperatures were close to normal. The statewide average temperature was 76 degrees, just a half a degree cooler than normal. And the highest temperature reading was 105 at Atwood on the 10th. And the lowest temperature reading was 44 degrees at Clay Center on the 30th. The lack of moisture and those warm temperatures, of course, had a negative impact on dryland corn, and it intensified that drought in the west, and it did expand that drought towards the east. For September, September was much drier than normal. All regions were below normal for the month, except for really small pockets in the southeast corner. This resulted, of course, in the expansion of drought across the state. At the end of September, only 23% of the state had no drought or abnormally dry conditions in place. Soil conditions sped up the corn harvest across the state, and it was detrimental to the winter wheat emergence due to the dry topsoil. Statewide average precip was only 1.5 inches. The south central region had the highest amount with an average of almost 2 inches, 1.91. The west central region was the dry spot with an average of 0.71 inches. Statewide average, the statewide average for September was 1.6 degrees, actually cooler, if you can believe that. The most significant event was the early cold front that brought a rapid switch from highs above 100 degrees to lows below freezing in a 48-hour period of time during that first full week of the month. Several locations set their earliest freeze record during that event. For October, October saw wild temperature swings as well with little precipitation. October was much drier than normal. It was ranked as the 10th driest October since 1895. in all regions average below normal for the month, resulting in an expansion of drought across the state. Precip that was received almost all came that last week of the month. Statewide average precip was just at 1.11 inches. The South Central region had the highest percent of normal with an average of 2.38 inches. And temperatures were uniformly cooler than normal across the state, although there were wild temperature swings with the highest reading of 99 degrees at Leavenworth on the 7th and the lowest temperature of -2 at St. Francis on the 2nd. The statewide average for October was actually almost 52 degrees, and that was almost 3.5 degrees cooler than normal. As in September, the major event of the month was a late month cold front that brought a rapid switch from highs above 90 to lows below 0 in another 48-hour period. The Southeast saw the first frost of the season, accompanied by some freezing rain. November was once again on the dry side, but that precipitation, what precipitation was there was split across the state. Statewide average precip for the month was 1.23 inches. The Northwest region was the driest with an average of just 0.05 inches of precip, while the Northeast region averaged almost 2.5 inches. Temperatures were above normal. The statewide average for November was 5.3 degrees warmer than normal, and the average temperature for the month was 47.3 degrees. This ranks as the 7th warmest November available on records. The major event in this month was, again, a cold front that brought widespread precipitation from south central to northeastern Kansas. Only one daily snowfall record, however, was recorded during the month. 2 inches fell at Jewel on the 10th. Okay, for December, the December forecast looks to remain warm and dry. Temperatures will probably remain a bit above normal with highs in the 50s. There is a chance that closer to Christmas we could see some colder than normal temperatures in the western high plains and a hint of above normal precip for the same area. For the remainder of the winter, NOAA's Climate Prediction Center states that La Nina is likely to continue through the Northern Hemisphere's winter, January through March, and then into spring 2021, March through May, creating above normal temperatures and below normal precipitation. So that's not overly exciting news. Besides the weather, of course, other factors, freezing temperatures, of course, affected the hay, which is going to affect the market. So portions of Kansas alfalfa stands, especially in the north central region, they were significantly affected by freezing temperatures in April. And of course, this is especially true for older and less robust stands. Of course, we've talked a lot about the drought based on the USDA drought monitor maps. Moisture conditions in the major hay producing areas keep getting worse and across the US as well. Almost all of the western half of the US is in a drought condition. As of December 1st, about 40% of the US hay producing acreage was considered under drought conditions, and an 8% increase from the first week in November, and the highest percentage since the first quarter of 2018. So that's not very good news. For Kansas, drought conditions on November 24th, 2020 currently were at 1,946,000 residents were in drought, while there was another 712,000 that were in abnormally dry areas. This is about 68% of the state's population, with 25% more of the population in abnormally dry areas. We seem to have an increase in insects as well. It seemed like to me, I had a lot of report of insects and insect damage to alfalfa crop this year, so that didn't help things. And then there's COVID-19, the big elephant in the room. COVID has touched and continues to touch the hay market on several fronts. from a downturn for dairy to the impact of the availability of livestock feed byproducts derived from the ethanol manufacturing. Although early on, the panic buying related to COVID-19 created a surge in fluid milk sales at grocery stores. That increase was short-lived. It wasn't enough to offset the lost milk and other dairy product sales in the food service industry as schools and restaurants remain closed. And then, of course, consumers spent less money due to wage cuts and job losses, therefore affecting the beef industry, which is heavily used in food service channels. And of course, we all know the issue with the packing plant disruptions. They were significant, and their impacts further slowed the cattle and the beef markets. We had reduced gasoline demand due to COVID-19 related to the travel restrictions, which also fueled sharply lower demand for ethanol. In turn, some of the ethanol plants reduced production and others closed. That not only affected ethanol production, but also the availability and the price of the byproduct for the DDGs, for distiller's grain for livestock feed. And I do know that some of the livestock feeders did turn to and increase their alfalfa usage a little bit, excuse me, to fill a protein ration void. So that did occur. Although hay deliveries began picking up towards the fall, a slowdown has been seen in recent weeks. And in talking to my hay producers, the people that contribute to the hay market report, over the last couple of weeks, they have reported illnesses and quarantine as perhaps part of the problem, as well as Thanksgiving. Another factor that affected the amount of hay that we have hitting the market was acres available. According to the NASS, the National Agricultural Statistics Service, alfalfa hay production was at 1.7 million tons, which was down 33% from last year. Area for harvest was at 530,000 acres, which was down 16% from last year. And the yield was just at 3.2 tons per acre, and that's down a little over 3/4 of a ton from 2019. All other hay production was at 3.96 million tons, which is actually up 4% from last year. Area for harvest was at 2.2 million acres, which is up 33% from a year ago. And yield was 1.80 tons per acre, but was just down about a half a ton from 2019. So overall, this is where we've been for the last 5 years. We can see Kansas hay trades have increased over the last couple of years. However, so far, hay traded in 2020 lags behind 2019 by about 33,200 tons. In 2020, hay report contributors I talked to moved an average of 1,058,354 tons of hay from January through the second week of December. You can see from this graph that throughout the year, we consistently really moved similar amounts of hay to what we did last year. However, trades did kind of drop off in September. This, I think, was contributed to the time of year. Farmers were busy finishing haying or trying to get it done. They were hitting harvest hot and heavy. And frankly, a lot of those guys just didn't have time to get hay delivered. In addition, we did have some open weather, some warmer weather, and that seemed to allow some of the cattle to stay out on pasture a little bit longer in some areas. Some areas, however, did receive some spotty rain during that downturn, and it did make it difficult, of course, to move hay in and out of fields. We do see a fairly rapid increase in trades at the beginning of October as the drought deepens. That drought deepens, and the talk of alfalfa shortages really starts to grip those hay buyers. Hay trades have dropped off in recent weeks, as I just stated, probably due to the Thanksgiving holiday and to COVID. Many of my producers I've talked to or contributors have reported they are either sick or quarantined, or their hired help is sick or quarantined. So that has kind of slowed down some of that movement as well. For Southwest Kansas, tons of grinding alfalfa sold in the Southwest region was almost 423,000 tons, which is actually down about 11,000 tons from 2019, or 2.55%. South Central Kansas, their grinding alfalfa moved so far was reported 279,868 tons, which was down 18,800 tons, or almost a little over almost 6.3% from 2019. Grinding hay and ground and delivered has really stayed fairly level throughout most of the year. You really only begin to see 2020 price overtake 2019 around July and August. You can start seeing it go up. As you may recall, though, you'll see that big dip in the 2019 numbers, in the 2019 line there. There was a lot of low quality grinder hay that was put up, and with that large quantity, we started to see that grinder hay hit in the market in 2019, and with that large quantity, it kind of took the price down. Another interesting thing about this year, there's been a really wide discrepancy in price that has been established between the Southwest region and the South Central region for alfalfa this year. Of course, Southwest region and the western quarter to half of the state has really been suffering with extreme dry weather. Both Southwest and South Central regions in 2020 grinding alfalfa and hay and ground and delivered prices are just now creeping up a bit than at the same time last year. Southwest grinding alfalfa in the bale is up about $31 as of December, the first 2 weeks of December. I've still got 2 weeks to go. And delivered is up about $10. There's a lesser increase in the South Central region, where they were able to put up a little more hay because they had a little bit more precipitation. South Central grinding hay in the bale is currently $25 higher, and ground and delivered is about $11 higher than last year. Current average alfalfa prices, just briefly, dairy alfalfa is still at $1 to $1.05 per point. Grinding alfalfa averages between $150 and $160 a ton. That's about $31 higher than last year. Ground and delivered is currently at $160 to $175, and that's about $10 higher than last year. Total grass hay traded, which includes, when I put this graph together, total grass hay is brome, prairie, oats, and Sudan grass for 2020. It seems to be up a little bit this year. They're up about 959.5 tons. That's been related to me. That's about a 1.4% increase compared to the same time frame last year. This year, producers reported that brome hay fields were variable. Some fields did really well, while others performed poorly. Most attributed the variation due to the April cold snap when I asked them about what they felt the issue was. All regions saw low temperatures dip between 24 degrees during the cold outbreak in the middle of April and May. This freeze resulted in damage to alfalfa stands and slowed the progress of grass hays. Brome hay price is lower in 2020 than 2019. Average brome hay is down $1 for small squares per bale price, and it's down actually $53 for small squares per ton price. Mid squares are down about $29, and although for most of the year, most of 2019 prices for large squares and large rounds have been higher, currently they are pricing nearly the same. Large squares are down only $16 and rounds are down only $15 over 2019. Prairie grass was abundant this year, although it got off to kind of a rough start with freezing spring temperatures and droughty conditions, April through June. Those July rains really helped revive that prairie and helped it recover a bit. Oops. Brome, let's see, where was I? Okay, prairie. Barns are full. Barns are full, and round bales of prairie grass can be seen on almost all the fields, all the hedgerows, all the fence lines. I know, especially in my area, prices remain mostly steady all summer. However, prairie hay prices bumped up slightly at the end of July and into early August, but once inventories were evaluated, a slight decrease was seen at the beginning of September, and demand remains fairly low. Prairie hay prices have similarly been lower in 2020 than in 2019. On average, prairie hay remained $1 down for small squares per bale price and $13 down for small squares per ton price. Mid squares are down $1 for large squares, or mid squares are down $1, large squares are down $8, and large rounds are down $27. So briefly, these are the current brome and prairie hay prices as of December 7th. Southeast prairie hay, small squares 120 to 125, large squares 100 to 110, large rounds 70 to 80. For the northeast, north central northeast region, small squares are at 550 to 650 per bale. Large squares are at 100, large rounds are 60 to 90. For brome hay, I did not have any small squares reported in southeastern Kansas. But they're large square or large squares, oddly enough. Neither one of those have been reported. 3x4s are around 95 and large rounds are at 75 to 85. For north central and northeast region, brome small squares are going for 650 to 750 per bale. 3x4s are going for 120, 4x4s 110, large rounds 75 to 85. As I stated earlier, I contact 35 Southwest feed yards and 14 South Central yards each month. The October weighted average price at Southwest feed yards was $155.10, which was down $4.87 from last year. Ground and delivered price for December currently is at 160 to 175. Southwest feed yards also reported using 17,475 tons of alfalfa in October, which is down 3,000 tons from last year. And total alfalfa reported through October was 183,275 tons. And I will say that's just for the feed yards I contact. So it's not all of them across the state, it's just the ones I contact. Southwest feed yards used on average 583 tons per day in October versus 659 tons per day last year. So we're down a little bit there. The October weighted average price for South Central yards, feed yards, is $132.63 per ton, which is down $11.70 from last year. Ground and delivered price from December is currently $135 to $145. South Central feed yards reported using 9,251 tons of alfalfa in October, which is an increase of almost 1,300 tons. And total alfalfa reported through October was 89,523 tons. Feed yards, South Central feed yards used on average 298 tons per day in October versus 254 tons versus 2019. So in other information, just to pass along, and you probably already know this, according to NASS, as of 2019, Kansas does rate as number 4 in production for all types of hay in the United States, with 6,315,000 tons. That was tons reported, which is about 4.9% of the US total. Kansas ranks 6th in production of other hay types with 3,795,000 tons, which is 5.1% of the US total. And Kansas ranks 7th in alfalfa hay production with 2,520,000 tons, which is about 4.6% of the US total. So, golly, that's a lot of information to cover. And I know I threw a lot of stuff at you, but the big picture, basically, weather, as always, had a big factor in our hay market this year, whether it was freezing temperatures, whether it was hail or freeze damage, whether it was drought, which continues to plague Kansas, especially the western part. There seemed to be an increase in insects. COVID-19, of course, has touched and continues to touch the hay market on several fronts. And then, of course, not only were acres available for harvest down, but the yields, as you all know, were down across all cuttings. Of course, this is going to result in less hay available and thus an increase in price, which we're starting to see that especially for alfalfa, that price creep up. So outlooks for 2021, what we expect, I have absolutely no idea at this point. Let's pray that we are not in the same fix that we have been in 2021. Let's give our prayers out to get over this COVID-19 and our prayers out. Please give us some rain. With that, I do want to give a big thank you to Mary Knapp and the Kansas Office of the State Climatologist, as well as all of the farmers, ranchers, feed yards, hay buyers, hay sellers, all of those folks who contribute to that Haymarket report, because I'm telling you, if y'all didn't contribute, there wouldn't be a Haymarket report. So anyway, I want to thank you all for that. And with that, I guess I will take questions. Uh-oh.
Well, does anybody have any questions for Kim? I do not see any in the chat box down there.
Kim, this is Clayton Janicki.
Hey, Clayton.
Hey, up here in the Northwest, I saw your numbers for what was, I guess, expected for prices up here. I just wanted to say that it seems like the last 2 weeks to a month, the prices have really jumped, and I'm guessing that's a shortage of production around, and feedlots are starting to figure out that it's just not there. They've been a little slow to react. There's quite a few of them that are starting to scramble for alfalfa right now. So
are there?
Yeah, and
that does not surprise me.
It's jumped up from, I think, that 110 to 120 you showed on the slide to grinding hay is going for about 145 to 50. Wow. And cow hay has jumped to about 180.
Okay.
And then the Supreme 225 or better.
Okay.
So, and I realize that's anecdotal. That's just mine. That's not maybe necessarily everybody's, but from what I'm seeing, that's where it's kind of gone crazy to.
Perfect. Well, good. Thank you for that information. I can use it.
Another quick question is, when would we have any idea what acreage intentions are for 2021?
I think that report usually comes out February or March, maybe, if memory serves, which it probably doesn't. But I'm going to guess probably around then, I think, is when I usually see that report come out.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
And there's a lot of corn stalks that were put up this last year. What kind of an impact is that having on our feedlots?
Well, they're using them. There's a lot of corn stalks being utilized, and I know that we're probably gonna, if the price continues to increase, I think we're gonna see a lot more. There's also a lot of silage put up this year. What I've been told anyway, a lot of silage, a lot of Sudan grass, a lot of corn stalks, a lot of wheat stalks, bean stalks, milo stalks. They put up just about everything they could put up. And you know as well as I do, as prices increase and maybe they aren't going to want to feed alfalfa as much, they will begin to mix that in. I have heard, that they are doing some mixing now as well. So. don't know if that answered your question, but anyway.
All right, we do have one question in the chat, Kim. Are there any figures on non-alfalfa brome native grass hay such as triticale and wheat hay? Got any numbers for that?
I do not have any current numbers. The only, I do have TEF. I have one producer that reports TEF, or two that report TEF, but I don't have any triticale. A lot of times when I ask for triticale information, the response is, we don't sell it, we use it ourselves. So,
Well, does anybody else have any questions for Kim? Well, Kim, we really appreciate your time as always. And Kim always has a spot on our KSFGC newsletter. There's always a market update every month there. So if you remember, you should